on the new Macs. Work got in like 4 of them, and I get to like stress test it. So last
Oh
night
yeah.
I opened like 56 Chrome windows, and I was like, I think this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. 56 is low. A lot of my coworkers have like 3 separate browsers with hundreds of tabs each.
Oh my god, it's so stressful. We'll remote into someone's computer, and it's just like you can't see the icon
No,
anymore.
no title. It's just the nub.
Yeah, it's just like the little nub, and like the Chrome window has like the red update in the corner, and I'm just
Yeah.
like,
What's going on, everybody? I am extremely happy to introduce you today to my friend Bonnie.
hey.
Bonnie and I have known each other for a good long while now. I don't even want to start counting the years because it's been years now. We've never actually worked together, but we have played lots of video games together, and we have a bunch of friends in common. And I feel like I've kind of watched Bonnie grow into this industry in a really like pretty awesome way, especially like very recently. You've made some serious moves. Um, and I thought to myself, it would be like incredibly helpful for you to share some of the stuff you've learned and some of the stuff that is clearly working for you. Um, and yeah, I think it's just going to be an exciting one. You've got so much good stuff to share. Welcome.
Thanks. How do I follow up that intro? I feel like that
I think
was
we just
it.
sign off at
That's
this point.
that's
Like,
like
yeah.
that's peak.
All right. We're good. Yeah, Bonnie, like just I guess for everyone's benefit, just kind of run me through um, the very rough outlines of like your path so far in tech and kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I started, I don't know, however, like 2014, I think. I had graduated from NHTI with an associate in general studies and visual arts. I was just getting started at Best Buy in their mobile department. It was terrible. Not a salesperson, don't like sales. From there, I think I took a year off trying to figure out like really what I wanted to do, because I kind of knew I didn't have the drive or the chutzpah to like make it in the art world, right? And a lot of people that I knew that got bachelor's or master's in arts were still kind of doing the job that they did to get them through college. So I decided that that was not the route I wanted. So I went to UNH Manchester for a bachelor's in computer information systems. While I was there, I switched over to Geek Squad, which taught me a lot about how to deal with people who didn't understand tech, didn't really want to understand tech, and um, kind of thought everyone was against them. And then also kind of how to calm people down who were upset about certain things. So that was a great learning experience, very hands on. Also, how to work with a team of people you may not like very much. And while I was at UNH, I got an internship at a nonprofit, which was very eye opening. You go from a world of like technology pretty much at Best Buy to like Outlook 2010 on prem, very much trying to work with what they have. So I was there for a little bit. I think I was only there for a semester, but that was a lot of good experience, a lot of hands on, a lot of how to make things work without a lot of resources. And then I got another internship over the summer at a company called New Forma. That was great, very more software based than hardware based. I was there for a summer, and then I was hired on for a month. And then the company got purchased and they laid off like a lot of people. And then they laid off everyone in IT except for one person. Yeah. So I got laid off from there. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a job at a company called, they're a manufacturing company. It's kind of funny. It was kind of a mix between like not having a lot of money and resources and like the software part at New Forma, because like I don't think they like really wanted, they just see a big price tag for tech, and they don't like realize that it's really important to keep the company running. So it got better. before, like right before I left, it was getting better for sure. But I had a lot of life changes happen. You know, the biggest part that I liked about my job, and I think the biggest reason I was even there for so long, was the people. And then the pandemic hit, and we all worked from home, and I didn't get my daily IT lunches anymore. So I decided that I did not like my job as much as I thought I did. And I got a pretty much a great offer from someone I actually worked with at Newforma, to go to another company called AVG, Alumni Venture Group, which is now Alumni Ventures. And they essentially, I got a message from the old HR person from Newforma who was working there now, and was like, "Hey, we have this role. I think you'd be perfect." And my response was, "I'm looking to move to Boston," because I was done with Manchester at that time. I was done with living in New Hampshire, and I just didn't really have much to keep me there. Um, I didn't hear back from her for 3 hours, so I was like, "Okay, well, I guess that's fine." And then she responds with, "You can work out of our Boston office." So I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure, let's talk." And I went through the interview process. I got the job. I picked up my whole life from New Hampshire, which I've lived in for 30 years, 31 years at that point. Nope, 30 years. And I moved to Boston. Well, I moved to Somerville, but I moved to the Boston area. Um, Met a great group of friends, love my job, commute to Manchester once a week. It's really the best decision I made. There were
Living the
so many
dream.
things that were pointing me there. You know, rents were cheap because of the pandemic. People didn't go back to school. So yeah, it was like everything was pointing me in that direction. And I feel like if I had missed that opportunity, I would have regretted it for a very long time.
Yeah, as if you'll permit me to say, as someone who was kind of like watching from the outside and we were talking during that time, it was just like I have never seen, that I operate on the saying of like you got to be kind of optimistic and you just got to swing at a bunch of stuff because the like traffic lights of life are never all green at the same time. But watching from the outside, like your last year, it was just like all the traffic lights were green at the same
Yeah.
time. It was just like, and you smartly just like saw that for what it was and were like, yep, I'm gonna hit the gas and like do this. um I just don't think I've ever seen anyone's life like kind of sort of change direction so dramatically so quickly and like completely. It was just amazing. Yeah,
Thanks.
congrats. And you did all this
Thanks.
stuff. Like I remember, so we have a mutual friend who she and I were like on the phone with you, like bullying you into like negotiating more and like asking for way too much money
Yep.
and stuff. And it's just like I just it was amazing to watch you, get yours, like to get what you're worth in this industry, to get like the job that's actually cool at a company that's actually going to treat you well for money
Yep.
that's actually like fair for what the amount of work you put in. um yeah.
I mean, I owe most of that to you because I remember very vividly being like, "They offered me this and I can't live in Boston on this. What do I do?" And you were just like, "Do this." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, but then
And
our
then,
mutual friend yelled at you enough for you to
yeah,
actually do it.
she was very much like, "You need to ask for more money." And I'm like, "I don't want to." And she's like, "No, you need to." And I was
Yeah,
like, "Okay."
yeah, I gotta have
The,
her on here soon actually. She's great. She also has a lot of like wisdom and experience to
she's
share.
so smart and she knows so much. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Um,
um
but yeah, that was the first time I had ever negotiated my salary. And I
yeah.
was like, it was terrifying.
Yeah,
It
it
was
is it's a
nerve wracking.
terrible feeling. It's like we are just trained in every way from like our first summer jobs on to basically like it feel like it's impolite to ask for more, to be greedy, to like push on an offer. Like, well, they want me. Surely, and I know this is like something everyone believes when they get into the industry. If they want me at, like 50 grand, surely they wouldn't want me at 55 or 60. They would just be like, no. It's like no one, it's like no one thinks, oh, it's cost this company $15,000 in time and effort and ads and whatever, bringing 50 people through the pipeline to even get an offer out. It's like it's a bargain for them to not spend that 15 grand again, um, in the time most of all. So, and you just mentioned so many things, like networking is a huge thing in this industry. It's like you
Yeah.
got this because you're someone can like vouch for you. Someone knows that you're good at your job. that you're smart and motivated and hardworking, and yeah, just like growing that network is.
Even yeah, even my job at I got the head of HR at New Forma recommended a recruiter to me and like reached out to the recruiter and was like, hey, this person is really great. And I worked with her. I can't remember the recruiting place, but she was really great. She was awesome. She gave me a lot of good hints about the interview that was coming up, the people I was interviewing with. And I really only had that interview at I had a phone interview at another company, but that wasn't through the recruiting company. And I had another job within 2 weeks, which was huge.
One of the things, I haven't recommended this in a while, so let me recommend it again, is if you're like earlier, actually throughout your career, working with a good recruiter is amazing. They do so much work for you. Like I remember when I moved, I'd been in Europe for a while. I moved back to the US. A recruiter pretty much like smoothed that entire experience. They have done the market research, like they have real insight into how much for this role you should be asking for, and they make more the more you make too. So
Yeah.
they like edited my resume because it was just like
Yeah.
disjointed because I've been freelancing for a few years. It's a lot of stuff that you often can't see if you're in your first few years in this career. Not that you were at this point, but that recruiters will, yeah, if you're new but you're good, and you know that you're good and you have some work experience, a recruiter can make getting that first like great job really really easier, smoother.
Yeah, and it's kind of nice to have that like companion, right? To like someone who's gonna try, because like you mentioned, the more you make, the more they make. So like they're also trying to get you a good salary and they're also trying to get you hired. And they usually know like the person that they're working with because they've probably recommended other people to them as well. So they're definitely there to like ease a little bit of the stress too about the interview coming up.
You just mentioned something great. Yeah, they usually also have spoken to that company before if it's a larger company, so they can often get you the kind of informal unofficial feedback verbally that you would never get if you were just blindly sending in a resume. It's like, if you don't pass the fourth out of six interviews or something, you will get the exact same rejection letter as if you had never gotten an interview at all, like thanks for your time, blah blah blah, stay in touch.
Yeah.
Whereas with a recruiter, often they talk to the hiring manager for like a debrief afterwards, and they can actually say, okay, so they liked you, but blah blah blah, and you're a little weak in this area or something. So it's like it's one of really the only ways to get valuable feedback out of most companies if you're talking to a recruiter that hasn't kind of in at that company. So yeah, networking, recruiting. I don't know, any other kind of like, what other stuff did you kind of learn during this process? I mean, it's probably a long list since you changed so many things at once, but
Yeah. um it's really hard because I understand I was very, very lucky that this job pretty much fell into my lap. Like I had been looking a lot and just never pulling the trigger because it was very daunting because it wasn't just like, oh, I'm looking for a new job. It was, I'm looking for a new job in a city, first of all, like that's really expensive to live in. And I'm up and moving out of the state that I've lived in my entire life. So it's kind of just like you got to just do it. You just got to rip the band-aid off. And I know I didn't really do that because, like I said, the job kind of fell into my lap. But I still was like, yeah, let's talk. Let's see where this goes, because that's the only way anything's gonna happen is if you actually make the moves. You can like talk about wanting a job or talk about moving, or I'm. It's funny that I say that because I'm pretty sure I blindsided two of my coworkers because I had mentioned a lot that I wanted to leave, but I don't think they ever thought that I would actually do it. So you just got to do it. You got to go out there. You got to have those interviews. You've got to put your resume out there, and it sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Like, as editing your resume sucks, especially after 3 years in the same company. You don't really know what to put, but you just got to do it. You got to send it out. You got to have those interviews. Um, Also, something else that was really great. I got to have my interview over Zoom because of the pandemic, so that took a huge kind of like stress off your shoulders, right? You don't have to worry about getting there. You don't have to worry about fidgeting under the desk. You can wear sweatpants and you don't have to worry about what shoes to wear. So it's great. I was very lucky and very fortunate, and I recognize that. But the biggest step is just like, I was like, yeah, let's have a chat. Let's see where this goes.
yeah, I think that's great advice. It's like especially for people that are in tech. A lot of them are like very brainy, theoretical people. It's easy to come up with like lots of reasons why you're not ready yet, why your resume just needs one more polish, and that just happens to be the hardest thing in the world to do. But it's just like getting stuff out there. You just like you have to make stuff happen. Like you got to start swinging at opportunities even before you're ready. That's the rule. If you feel like you're ready, like you've waited way too long. um Tune in tomorrow for Dave's inspirational quotes. That's just what's on there. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. Now that you're in your kind of current position, obviously without revealing any company secrets, like what are the things high level that you that the job kind of, first of all, can you share like your title and like just a rundown of what the job is, and then kind of the main unwritten like skills that that draws on?
Yeah, so I'm an IT specialist. Um, it's weird because we're a very small team. We have about 170 employees. The hard like IT side, it's just two of us. So provisioning laptops for new hires or replacements, setting up equipment. It's like kind of the IT ticket, like first level stuff, but then we're also doing a ton of projects. Like we rolled out Okta this year for the whole company. We're currently going through a domain change, which means updating email addresses and accounts and all of that stuff, and kind of like the back end gross nonsense that goes on with that. We are also currently moving to another facility in our Manchester office. So like that is a lot of IT work as well. I haven't really been so much on that because that's in Manchester, but I'm going down there for a week to help them make sure everyone's like monitors are good and everyone can connect to the printer. But it's like this job is really interesting because it's a lot of like the mindless ticket stuff and then just like these really big projects that only two of us really are working on. And then we have an application support team that does like our more like our HubSpot instance and our website and stuff, and will assist there when needed. But yeah, it's kind of a nice mixture because it's like when your brain is just done with these big projects, you have like mindless tickets to work on, which is always it's a very nice balance.
Yeah, yeah, that totally makes sense. It's interesting. Yeah, like you were going from talking about like installing applications on people's machines or whatever, managing them, to roll out Okta company wide. That's hardcore. Love it. Um, yeah, that passes the time. I mean, it keeps it interesting. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
and
Uh,
and this company, they move fast. They move so fast, and it's kind of great because it's like nothing ever is too stagnant for too long. You're always put on another project or another idea, or trying to figure out if this application works for the company, or it's constant.
what's the split, would you say, of like tech skills in terms of the nitty gritty, like operating systems? What like OS skills are you using? Are you doing any scripting and stuff? Are you, um, yeah, like kind of which of those skills are you drawing on or developing or?
So funny story. I went from a completely Microsoft Windows based company to a Mac OS G Suite work, Google Workspace, I think it's called now. Very heavy cloud application based company. So I'm still learning the in and outs of Mac. Like I use Mac a little bit, but I never ever like use it as much as I am now. So I'm learning a lot about that, about how they work, about like I learned probably 6 months in how to actually boot to recovery on a Mac, which I did not know before, but it's kind of interesting how like little I knew about the Mac OS and how much I'm learning about it now. I don't really do much scripting. I probably could if called upon, but John has got that pretty much locked down. So he kind of does most of that. We do a little bit with an Adigy, but it's mostly, again, John just kind of knows it all, and he was here when it was implemented, so he's the guy for that. But yeah, it's mostly just like rolling
Learning
out.
all these applications
Yeah,
that you stitch together into this kind of like IT fabric for the business.
yeah, yeah, or rolling out new applications. I feel like we're rolling out a new application like every month.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Part of me wonders why when I was first hired, I was like, I don't know why they hired me. I don't know any of these applications. Like I've never used Mac. I didn't dabble in G Suite from the admin side.
Yeah.
I've never used HubSpot, which is something huge that we use too. Like it was just
But I think in this part of the industry, especially, it's like, I think if like hiring managers are waiting to hire someone that has experience with all the things on the checklist, it's madness because you need someone that can learn fast. And that's really the only thing you're looking for is like, are they smart? Do they work hard? Are they not lazy? Can they learn fast?
yeah.
Because like you said, I mean, it changes so quickly. It's like, even if they are masters of the current set of applications, it doesn't matter because in 6 months, it's like 25% of that stuff will have been traded out. And at
Yeah.
that point, again, what matters is can they learn fast? Can they kind of like stick with it?
Yeah. Are they able to do the research? So like there's a lot of my job in the last like 3 months has been trying to like, I'll be presented with a problem and I just have to find an application solution for that. So like most recently it was something easy like digital signage, but right now we're looking for, we have like media, like 4K videos and stuff, and we're trying to figure out, we don't want an on-prem solution because we don't really have the internet speeds for that. But we need to figure out essentially a NAS, but a cloud NAS, and how that's going to work for everyone, and how does that integrate with our systems, and how do we protect that with Okta. So yeah, a lot of that.
That's cool. Do you have any well, I know you do have like kind of tech hobbies, like things that you're into, things that you're kind of learning on your own time?
I feel like I've been fighting with a Plex server for the last 6 months of my life. Before I moved, I was fighting with a permissions issue. And then I moved and I didn't have a place for my Plex server, but I finally figured out the setup here, my new apartment. And I think that is going to be my next deployment, is because before it was put in a Docker container and I don't know enough about Docker. So I decided that I was going to scrap that completely, and then rebuild. So I still have all the media. I just have to figure out how to get the Plex server up and running on a VM host, which is easy enough. Hopefully I don't run into permission issues again, because I think I might just throw it out my window.
Got to dive deeply into Linux and Unix permissions. You can even practice on your Mac. They all work the same.
Oh, that's a resource I did not have before.
Oh yeah, that's what you want. That's what you want.
And I'm also in the process of building a DAC board, which is like just like a little information board. It's you can put it on a Raspberry Pi, and then you pop it into like the back of a old monitor, and it's just like a calendar, what you're playing on Spotify, weather, if you have a commute, your commute will populate, that type of stuff. That's actually pretty easy. I think I'm just struggling with, I'm trying to solder it onto a Raspberry Pi Zero. So I have to solder a bunch of stuff, and that's kind of given me a little bit of trouble. So
cool. Oh man, I'm asking myself, when was the last time I had an opportunity to bust out a soldering iron? I genuinely, I do not know. It's not something I'm good at. It's like I've been on the software side basically since I got into this.
I'm more stuck on like what intermediate part do I need to buy so the Raspberry Pi can display on because it depends on the type of monitor that you have. So like I got an old laptop screen, and so I need to solder to those to a board, and then the board to the Raspberry Pi. Yeah. And I'm also not confident that I can do it with a Zero. I might need
something with more like breakout pins or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's really it. I'm trying to troubleshoot my boyfriend's computer. He's having some hard drive issues.
All your 3D printing. It's so rad.
Yeah, and I do have a 3D printer. I'm trying to teach myself 3D modeling. It's getting better, but it's not an easy thing to learn on your own. I feel like I need a good maybe a 4-hour class, good base class, and then I think I'd be fine. I can do like basic stuff. There's a website that I can't think of right now that allows you to do like just like very basic stuff in it, and you can export it as an STL. So I've made like some signs or like a planter pot or something. But basically right now I'm just downloading stuff from Thingiverse and printing them or modifying them to suit my needs and then printing them. But I just recently got that back up and running after the move too, which has been nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to reset up your whole like tech life.
Yeah.
I was just thinking we should use your art skills. I feel like there's some pretty cool software now that can like kind of turn 2D images or series of 2D images into like 3D models to some degree.
Yeah. My friend, I don't think I have it with me or close by, but my friend made this really cool piece of art. I can share it with you later. And then I took that and I made it into a 3D model. I've been meaning to send it to him, but he gave me permission to do it. I asked him before I just took his art and made it into my art. But
That's what we do here. We
it's really cool because it's
just
just like
zeros and
it's a
ones.
simple, it's a simple black and white, and I just made it like a little 3D.
Cool.
It's cool. I'll send you pictures after this. But yeah, it's really cool. And his art's
You
pretty cool. I'm way into the PC made, so
Huh. Yeah, I'd love to see that. I've like my entire life have actually wanted to build like virtual worlds. I was always like, I wish I could just walk around this video game world, you know, like and this is way before VR or anything was available. And I feel like now is this golden age of like you have kind of Unity where it's like there's kind of a standardized way of like importing 3D models from like everything into Unity at this point. And Unity takes care a lot of like the game engine stuff that you don't need to write your own anymore, like 3D engine.
that's cool.
Um, and it's I don't know how plug and play at this point it is with like VR stuff, but it feels like it's getting there. Like it might be actually time to like some of this, what might have been an insane dream for a company of 50 nerds
Yeah.
10 years ago is like achievable by a few people now. So
The Vive just put out this new, I can't remember what it's called, but was looking at it yesterday. It's literally like big aviator goggles you put on, and it puts you into this like meditation type scape where you just kind of like hang out and chill, and feel like that is exactly what you're looking for. Something
yeah.
for that
Yeah, I
platform.
always exactly. That's exactly what I wanted. I just want it's like it doesn't even need to have any game mechanics, like any game programming. Just like give me the environment, let me like, make like a few zones that have different soundscapes or something, in Unity. Just like it's really just a world map like editor, right? It's nothing.
Yeah.
But if I could use some cool software to like rip, I don't know, like interior pictures of some like temple somewhere in like a one of those little islands in China in front of Hong Kong or something, you know, like rip that, just have it generate an acceptable 3D model, clean it up a little bit, and then just like, you know,
Yeah.
be
They have
rad.
like 3D YouTube videos. Scarlett and I watched one with puppies when she visited once. So that was cool. You can just sit in the middle of the room and you can turn around
Whoa.
in the VR headset, and just like you're in just like this room full of puppies.
I really feel like this is the very beginning of like an untapped like golden age of VR stuff.
It's
That's
just like
like
escapism,
any
pretty
good
much.
idea basically hasn't been done yet, right? It's like you could come up with 10 cool ideas, and the technology is getting to the point where it's like achievable for one person or a small team to actually like put together a kind of like tech demo of that. Maybe
Yeah,
that's what I'll do. Yeah, that's what I'll do with my free time, my
sounds
copious
pretty
amounts of
great.
free time that I don't have.
You should look into that Vive headset. It's completely wireless. You work control it with your phone, but it's literally just like the aviator type. Like they're just big, like probably the goggles you got when you after you got your eyes dilated. Like they're just big and they go sit on your face, and that's it.
That's awesome.
Like no wires or anything.
Cool. That's pretty cool. Huh. All right. Well, one more project for the backlog for us to work on. Let's pull some other people in.
Feel that.
How how do you kind of evaluate different kind of company cultures that you are walking into in interviews and stuff now that you have some experience with kind of what you want and what works for you and what kind of doesn't work for you? What are some of those indicators that someone who's interviewing can try to pay attention to in that very like limited exposure you get to a company that you're thinking about?
Yeah. So first thing I usually do is Glassdoor, although I feel like stuff like that is starting to get more and more muddled with like fake reviews, or like maybe pressure from companies to like put in good reviews, whether things are actually good or not. So I would definitely tread Glassdoor lightly nowadays. Probably 5 years ago it was fine, but nowadays I've heard some stories about people getting pressured to either put in a good review or just not review at all if they don't feel like the company culture is great. Um, you can turn to, the 10 best companies to work for as well. But I really think like when you're interviewing people who would potentially be your teammate, I think you can tell someone when they're genuine about the company culture, and you can tell how they feel about it. I feel like now it might be a little hard because, with the pandemic, most people are working from home. The company culture is probably vastly different than it was 2 years ago. But I think if you can get someone who actually genuinely seems excited about the company culture, even now, that's a huge, like, that's a good thing. That's something you definitely want to look out for. But I think for me, it was pretty easy to tell when people were being disingenuine about it. um my last company, i don't I don't think I got along well with the people I interviewed. They were really nice, they were great, they were very forthright. I didn't really get any red flags. I didn't think when I finally got hired, it's tough because like the people I really liked, right? And I don't know, I think IT separated from like tech, but IT specifically is really hard because I feel like a lot of people don't put the money in IT that they think they need. So it gets a little tough. So speaking to my last company's culture, like I thought it would be great. It was pretty great for a while. But things changed a lot over the 3 years, so that was tough. But the new company I'm at, it was easy because I knew someone who worked there. She reached out to me. I have a feeling that if she didn't like it, I wouldn't have gotten a text message trying to hire me. So if you know anyone in even in the industry, if you can always ask them. I think that's a huge, networking is huge. If you can find someone in the company, that ask them, or even if they used to work there. If you in the industry again, like you might hear, oh, we hired this person from this company and they said they hated it because XYZ, or they liked it but they had to move. If you can find someone who might know someone from that company, that's a huge thing. But I really just feel like the person that you're interviewing with, the teammate that you're going to be working with directly, I would just ask them what the company culture is like. Really pay attention to their response. If they're like, oh yeah, it's great, just the tone of the voice, the excitement they get when they talk about it, I think is really important and is definitely what I looked out for.
Yeah. Yeah, that totally tracks with my experience too. Just yeah, it's just I mean, you kind of alluded to this before, but it's like you get into this because you like tech, but then you're like, oh, this is all about people. And I mean, even in your very first kind of tech gig, you realize like, oh, Geek Squad is about people, not about like technology. It's like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Working
think
in
that's
IT. Oh, sorry.
no, no,
Just working in IT, working with people is like the biggest, most, it's like the biggest part. It doesn't really matter if I mean, it does matter if you're good at the technology, but like the biggest, your ability to communicate with people,
yeah,
your ability to talk to people, your ability to communicate like what is happening to them in terms that they understand is huge. And Geek Squad taught me most of that. So did my first internship. But it's such an important part of the job. I don't like it, almost doesn't matter if you're good at the technology part, as long as you're willing to like work with someone and even just be straight up honest and be like, I have to go do more research. I'll get
yeah,
back to you. I do that a lot. It's just
yeah.
communication and
Humility and communication are
skills.
big.
Yeah.
You do not want to work with someone who doesn't have both of those. But I would say, I mean, I would even more strongly commit to what you're saying because it's not just IT. Like people imagine that like being a back end programmer is somehow different, but it's just as much about people. Like the days of one or two people hacking out miles of code that no one ever else, like no one else ever looks at, or without a project manager or TPM, without teammates, without other teams, without having to cooperate, without having to understand business requirements. Like it's vanishingly rare that you will excel like that without intimately working with other people every single day of your career. It's just it's a fantasy, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, yeah, and the ability to change and accept that things are different is huge. I've heard so many stories about people going into companies and being like, these people don't want to change and they don't want to upgrade and they don't want to do anything and it's terrible and I hate it, and then they end up leaving. Like that company just lost a really good programmer or a really good IT person because a coworker was still stuck in like, I don't know, 2010 and like didn't want to use GitHub or something, didn't want to use
Yeah,
version control. Um,
it's a great
and
point.
it's the same thing in IT. Like if I didn't get along with my coworker or we disagreed on something or my manager, it would just be miserable.
Yeah,
So you
I
really,
fundamentally disagree. I think it's even more of a risk, like you're saying, in IT, because companies, I think you alluded to this before, companies, you're really kind of like on the wrong side of the balance sheet at companies that don't understand that even an IT department that's run really well is actually adding value to their ability to change things around quickly, to improve business processes and stuff. It's like all of that stuff happens in software at this point. It's not like, you have some HR department that's like writing stuff on little like sketch pads and that's how it gets done. It's like your IT department is creating value because it directly relates to your HR or legal or accounting department's ability to like use their stuff, use the right stuff, migrate to the right stuff, secure it properly. It's
yeah,
just like the days of, yeah, IT being these kind of, in the IT dungeon. It's funny because at my first job, I made a sign that was like Dave's IT dungeon, right? Stuck it on my cube. Um, but like those days are pretty much over. And if you're at a company, I think that is a cultural warning sign. If you're at a company that thinks IT is like a cost just to be minimized, that
yeah.
is going to be an unhappy slog for the entire time you're there. It's just always going to be an uphill battle. Um,
And you just kind of get smothered at a point and you just don't even bother bringing new ideas to the table because you know that it's not going to be heard and it's not going to be valued and you're just going to get shot down. So then you just sit there and you become this ticket monkey who's just like turning tickets and not bringing any new ideas to the table, and you're not growing either as a person. And it kind of stinks because then you're just stuck, and if that happens too early, then it's tough to get out of.
yeah, you can stall. That's true. I think I made some video a while back that was kind of, it was after I talked to a few different people sort of in the span of 2 weeks from all different companies that all came up with the same problem. And I was like, I didn't make a video on this, but it's easy. I think people that are trying to get into programming or like, kind of like onto a DevOps team, like doing infrastructure work, that kind of thing, they often are told like, oh, get into, just find any like ticket monkey job. And like that's your into tech. And then you'll just go from there. It's like, it's not 20 years ago, those things were a lot closer at companies. And I think now they're much more siloed and you just run a high risk of stalling out if you take just any IT job,
Yeah.
where it's like
Like,
going to affect your career and how much money you have and stuff.
yeah. And, that was kind of a big part of why I left my old company, was because it was like I saw no upward movement. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a ticket monkey. And the two people that are like above me are probably not going to leave for a while. So, and I don't really know if that's what I want to do, because after that, where do I go?
Yeah.
And I saw the company I'm at as it's an application based company where I think IT is going in general. Like, on-prem stuff is not, maybe it'll come back, maybe cloud computing and or AWS and like all that stuff and Azure will become too expensive and people will go back to on-prem, but I don't foresee that happening for
Yeah. I don't
most
see a lot
for
of
most
migrations
companies.
the other
Like,
way. Yeah.
yeah, and it's I saw that in my old company and I was like, I don't want to get stuck here and I don't want to get stuck in this industry either,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of new stuff coming out. And yeah, my new company, like I said, I'm learning about new applications, like Okta was something completely new to me. And like that's a huge skill to have. And
Yeah.
I
Having
just
done
don't,
an Okta deployment at a company, like you can take, that's your cert, you know what I mean? Like you can take that
Yeah.
anywhere. Everyone's migrating to Okta. It's like,
You need to make sure that when your first job, unless you are really, really driven to just turn over every 2 years, is in a company that you see yourself growing in. And I know a lot of people don't stick around, but you need to be in a company that is also growing and learning and willing to change and willing to hear you and listen. And it's important.
yeah, I think that's great advice.
If you looked at my title on paper, it's essentially a lateral move, but I knew that the knowledge I gained moving to
Yeah,
this company was going to be huge.
yeah,
And I was going to be able to take that knowledge and get something better. Maybe not now, but definitely in the future. Whereas if I stayed at my old company, it was just like, cool, I can help you with your Microsoft Word,
right.
or
But only if it's
like,
version from 2003. That's the one.
yeah.
Outlook 2003. Yeah, no, this is what I was gonna say before. I'll just say it. Is exactly what you just said. You know, you are to some degree writing like your resume. It's you're writing like the elevator pitch for why the next company and the next one should hire you. And it's like if it's like I was here for 2 years and didn't really do anything interesting, that's much worse than I was here for only 8 months because it wasn't a great fit, but I did these 3 exciting projects. It's like that is preferable almost every single time, unless you have only 8 month stints, um, is preferable to like, oh, I went over here and I did some boring stuff and I didn't really learn anything. And then I don't know, things got really bad. I went over somewhere else and then like, I didn't do anything. You know, it's like no one wants to hear that. And if you I think it's especially important because when things are bad, it saps your own energy so much that it's like exponentially harder to like look for the next thing that will get you out of that. But
Yeah.
it's like it is worth it. It is absolutely worth it because it's the only way to recover from that kind of like career slump. And it's not just like, well, whatever, you'll just either, regardless of which company you're at, you'll just go home and have the same life. It's like you will have dramatically different lives if you are consistently like challenging yourself at work. You're just going to work at more interesting companies. You're going to make more money. More money over time is even more invested money. You know, it's like it is just a much more interesting like 30, 40 working years to have than to be bored all the time and come home tired because you were bored all day. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Once you learn what you can from a company and you don't see change coming, it's time to leave. And
yeah,
I'm not saying I didn't learn any, like, I don't want anyone to think that my last job was boring the whole time and I didn't learn anything. I learned a lot, especially in that first year. But, year 2 and 3, I was like starting to realize, I was like, okay, this is just more of the same. There's nowhere to go.
yeah,
I want to learn new stuff. I want to learn relevant stuff. So I
yeah.
think,
I think thankfully in our industry there's not too much stigma around moving around. It's like expected. A, it's
yeah,
the only way to get like significant raises, and B, it is that's on management. And B, it's like you want fresh people in there. I'm not saying fire someone who's been there 3 years, but it's like people that are in their first or second year of work are like they're still really adapting to that job. They're bringing in ideas from somewhere else. It's like you want new people. You want people that haven't been somewhere forever to
yeah,
like stay there forever. Because like, what new ideas can you have about a business after you've been stuck in the same way of thinking for 5 or 6 years in that system? It's like
yeah. And
it's
then,
good for everyone.
yeah. And then you become that person that doesn't want to change, and the new
Right.
person comes
Yeah,
in
you're
and
like,
you
well, damn
butt
it, we've
heads with
always done
them.
it that way. And the new person's like, I'm getting frustrated because you're telling me that the shitty way of doing it is how you want to do it. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, wow, I like that. I like you live long enough to see yourself become everything you hate.
Yeah. I
Great.
mean,
Love it.
it's definitely true. And definitely in companies, I think that kind of beat you down, like I mentioned before, because you're just kind of like, nope, we're just doing it this way because I don't feel like fighting that battle today. And so you become that person that doesn't want to change. And it's
Yeah,
sad.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's a very honest and actually shockingly positive spin on the whole thing is that it's not, yeah, even those people that feel like obstructions a lot of the time, if you come into a company that's kind of been doing it one way for a long time, it's it's like they can benefit from becoming unstuck, whether it's by moving to a new place or by a new kid coming in and like telling them to turn the world upside down. Maybe that's not the answer exactly, but like meeting in the middle to like change some stuff, make it better, can also
Yeah.
like dislodge some some people that have become a little too comfortable. Yeah.
So when you see yourself becoming a little bit too comfortable and that new guy comes in and you hate him, open up your mind a
Yeah,
little bit.
exactly.
Just let him
That's
come in there. Let him
that's
say hey.
amazing advice. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I've learned, and this is kind of like a life lesson as well, but it just kind of all came crashing down on me at once, is if you're unhappy, just leave. I made that decision in my personal life. I've made that decision in my work life, and it has only gotten better. And maybe I'm lucky, and maybe it just happened to work out for me, but I am in a much better place all around as a human being, my work life, my personal life, everything than I was 2 years ago. And that's because actually it was a year ago. It was a year ago, like a couple days ago, that I just up and
Unreal.
moved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
night and day. As someone who has seen you and watched you kind of from the outside, it's just night and day. Like it's like you're living another life, like quite like entirely. It's
yeah,
amazing.
thanks.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, let me tell you, but I do think that people get stuck and it's easy to be stuck and no one is going to advocate for you. That's another big thing that I learned, especially at my old job. No one's going to advocate for you. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to, and if you're not being heard, I mean, maybe this is just a little passive aggressive and a little petty, but if you're not being heard, just leave. There's plenty of jobs out there. There's a place that you're going to be happier, where you're going to like the people you work with, when you're going to like your management. I found it. I love my management. They stand up for us. They tell the big wigs no when we can't do something. Like, it's, you got to leave. If you're unhappy in any aspect of your life, you have to make that change because nobody else will do it for you. Mic
I'm
drop.
gonna steal credit for that and put it in the Dave's book of motivational aphorisms. Yeah, it's
And
totally
I
true.
know that it's a lot easier said than done. And
Yeah.
I know that I had a little bit of an easier path, I think, than most people to get it done. But you still have to be the one to do it. I was still the one that decided that I was moving. I was the one who decided to make the changes in my personal life. I was the one who was like, F it, I'm just going to move to Boston because all these things are right. Rent's
Yeah.
cheap. This job is here.
Yeah.
There's people here that I know I like, that I get along with. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Worst case, I have to move back. Not the end of the world.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty fantastic way to structure it in your mind. And I appreciate you saying that, reiterating that it is not, that doesn't mean it's easy, but that on some level it is simple at least. Yes, I
Yeah.
know the simple things are often very hard to do, but if it's worth it and it's relatively simple, then it's doable. You know, like rad. I'm saying rad a lot. I don't know why, but rad is
Because
the
it's
word.
rad, man.
It is rad. Yeah, totally. Yeah, love it. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for taking the time to do this. I just like thank you for sharing kind of a lot of these. I think things that are like kind of hard to talk about sometimes because they're not, it's not like all rosy, and like, you know, often making these changes comes from like you're in pain for a while and it's like you don't even, you're like numb to it at that point. That's not super fun to talk about or anything, but I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah. I mean, I only left places because I was unhappy. Well, New Former, I wasn't really that unhappy, but that choice was made for me. But I left my last company because I was unhappy. And it took a pandemic and being stuck at home and not seeing my coworkers to realize that my job wasn't that great and I needed a change. And I changed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a very like powerfully positive way to reframe like some level of like day-to-day suffering. So like it's actually not that bad if it's an impetus for you to change stuff. It's like
Yeah.
cool. Thanks
I
again,
do
Bonnie.
miss my IT lunches though. I miss them a lot.
You know, it's a small price to pay. You can still have that shit over like Zoom and chat, you know, and like in person, obviously, once things improve. It's just like, you know, that can be reconstructed outside of a job. You don't also need like 50 hours of shitty work to go along with that.
It's true.
Um, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was great to talk. Nice to catch up.
Yeah. Yeah. Peace, everybody. Thanks for
Peace.
watching.